Mama said knock you out. I'm gonna knock you out. Mama said knock you out. Welcome guys to another knock 'em out video. Today we are going to knock 'em out using figurative language. Let's go. Okay, so basically when we communicate using two types of language. We use the literal and we use the figurative. So the literal language is using words exactly as they mean. For example, we have here the car is blue and he caught the football. There's no guessing what those words mean because they literally mean what they say. The car is blue and he caught the football. Now, on the other hand, we have figurative language. Figurative language is the opposite of literal in that words have a different meaning than from the literal, okay? For example, you've heard the terms, I've got your back. Well, that is figurative language. There's also one here, there's a snake in my boots. Now, that one came from Toy Story, if you've ever seen that movie, and that is also figurative language. So figurative language can sometimes be called figures of speech, and so you'll hear both of those terms used the same, figurative language and figures of speech. So check out the two photos that we have here. We have the first one that says, Dad won't get off my back until I take out the trash. Now, is that literal language or is that figurative? Well, if you said it was figurative, you would be correct because Dad would not literally be on your back, okay? On your back means that he keeps bugging you to take out the trash. He won't stop asking you or telling you to take out the trash. That's what figurative means. And the next one we have here is, wow, it's raining cats and dogs. So have you ever seen it rain very, very hard? Okay, so that is also figurative language where the comparison is between how hard it's raining and cats and dogs falling out of the sky. Okay, guys, so those are our two types of language, literal and figurative. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about figurative language. Now, I have a few examples here that I want to share with you, and this is by far not all of the figurative language that is out there. There are lots of different types of figurative language, but we're just going to pull out a few that we are going to work with, okay? So let's go through these and I'll explain each one to you, okay? All right, so first we have what is called an adage, okay? An adage is a wise old saying containing a universal truth. So adages are used a lot in communication. So the example that we have here is don't bite the hand that feeds you, okay? Now that can be a little complex to explain, but basically what it means is that if someone is giving or doing something for you, then you should appreciate that as opposed to being unappreciative or ungrateful. So that adage means if someone does something nice for you, then you reciprocate it, you do something nice for them, or you show appreciation for that. So that is an adage. Next, we have a hyperbole. A hyperbole is an exaggeration, and those are very, very common in communication. So the example here is, it is so hot you can fry an egg on the sidewalk today. So, do we fry eggs on the sidewalks? No, we do not. So that, of course, is not literal. It is figurative. And what it's comparing is comparing the temperature outside to being so hot that it would actually, if you were to put an egg on the sidewalk, it would fry that egg. So that is a complete exaggeration, which is an example of a hyperbole. Next, we have imagery. Imagery is used a lot in the dramatic arts, like poetry and plays and dramas, things like that. And what it does is it uses words to paint a picture in the reader's mind. It's vivid, it's creative, it uses the senses. Our example that we have here is, The blue bowl held yellow bananas with black flecked skin, large red apples, and pale green pears. So we can imagine a bowl with all of those colors in it with those different types of fruit. That would not be hard for us to do. So we're going to go over here to the top to allusion. Allusion is a reference to something well known in literature or history. These are not so common, but they are used in figurative language, in communication. So check out the example that we have here. The example says the saying, beware of Greeks bearing gifts. So that is sort of like a warning to watch out for tricks. So beware of Greeks bearing gifts, because that actually happened in history where they played a trick on other people using a Trojan horse. And so today we use Trojan horse in the technology world to signify a bad virus or something like that. So beware of Greeks bearing gifts would be an illusion. And so a Trojan horse would be an example of that illusion. So it comes looking peaceful and friendly, but in fact is out to get you and is bad. Next, we have an idiom. Idioms are used a lot in communication. An idiom is a saying that does not make literal, logical, or even grammatical sense, but people within a culture understand its meaning. For example here, and this one is common, don't let the cat out of the bag. So what do you think that means? Don't let the cat out of the bag. Because we have a picture here with a kitten inside of a bag. So what does that mean? Well, I'll help you out. That actually means that whatever is inside that bag, like a secret or a set of knowledge or something that you know about someone or about something, to not let the cat out of the bag would mean to not reveal that secret or that knowledge or whatever it is inside of that bag. So don't let the cat out of the bag is sort of like not telling a secret. Okay, moving right along, we have personification. Personification is giving human traits to non-human things. These are used quite often. The example that we have here is after eating the pie off the table, the dog hung his head down almost apologetically. So dogs know that they're not supposed to eat from the table, okay? So this particular dog, have you ever had a pet that grabbed something off the table and ate it? And he knew he wasn't supposed to do it, so he had this look of apology, like, I know I've done wrong, but hopefully you won't punish me, you know? So that is an example of a non-human thing, such as a dog, displaying a human trait, which is an emotion such as apology. All right, down at the bottom we have symbolism. Symbolism is a concrete thing that is meant to represent an abstract idea. So basically what that means is we use something to symbolize something else. And so an example that we have here that would be a good example would be the United States American flag, okay? So that American flag symbolizes a lot of things, such as freedom, such as the pursuit of happiness, such as every man being able to achieve success. So that American flag represents a larger concept to a group of people. So symbolisms are used quite often in communication. So going back over here, the two most common ones that we have are similes and metaphors, okay? So these are very common, and of course we may already know these, that a simile compares two unlike things using like or as. And the example that we have here is the frozen parking lot was as slick as an ice rink. So the frozen parking lot was as slick as an ice rink. And then we have a metaphor which also compares two unlike things directly without using like or as. And our example using the same one we use for the simile is the frozen parking lot was an ice rink. So this time the parking lot was an ice rink as opposed to a simile where it was as slick as an ice rink. Okay, so those are just a few of examples of figurative language. As I stated before, there are lots more, but these are the common ones and the ones that we are going to use more in class, okay? Okay, so let me ask you something. What did you notice about all of those different types of figurative language that we just went over? Now, if you were able to figure out that they all were making a comparison between two things, then you are awesome. That, in fact, is what figurative language does. Figurative language most often is a comparison between two things. So come with me and let's take a stroll through the field of figurative language. So, when you're asking yourself, is this figurative language? Let's start with the first question you should ask yourself is two things being compared? If that answer is no, okay, then you're going to ask yourself, well, are they being exaggerated too much or too little? If that answer is yes, if it's being exaggerated too much, then that is called a hyperbole. If it's being exaggerated too little, then that is called an understatement. Okay? Going back up, if those two things are being exaggerated too much or too little is no, then could that object or thing or idea be doing human things? If yes, then that is a personification. If not, then that is a metaphor. Now, let's go back up here and say if we're asking ourselves, are two things being compared? That answer is yes. If it is, are the two things compared using like or as? If they are, then of course that's a simile. And if they are not, of course, that is a metaphor. So basically, guys, when you're trying to identify figurative language, the first question you want to ask yourself is it a comparison between two things? If it is a comparison, is that comparison using like or as, such as in a simile or a metaphor? If it's not using like or as, is it being exaggerated too much or too little, as in a hyperbole or understatement? If not, is that object or thing doing human traits? If it is, then that is personification, and if it is not, then that is a metaphor. So when you're trying to identify a figurative language, if you ask yourself those questions, then you should be able to figure out if, in fact, the language that you are either reading is indeed figurative language. So let's do a quick knowledge check. Our first example is, you are my sunshine. Which type of figurative language do you think that is? If you said metaphor, then you would be absolutely correct. This is a comparison between a person and sunshine. Sunshine making us feel good, therefore this person makes us feel good. Next we have, you're as sweet as pie. If you said this is a simile, then you are awesome. Again, we're comparing a person to being as nice or as sweet as pie. Next up we have, the final exam will be a piece of cake. Now, if you said this was an idiom, you are again correct. Yes, this is an idiom. An idiom being the comparison is the final exam being as easy to like as a piece of cake. We all know that cake is easy to like, and so this final exam in comparison will be just as easy. Next up we have, I'd rather swim with sharks than do my homework. Okay. If you said this is a hyperbole, then you would be correct. This is an extreme exaggeration because I truly hope that you would not rather swim with man-eating sharks and get torn to bits and pieces and eaten than to do your homework. A great example of a hyperbole, which is an exaggeration. Next up, we have the sun smiled on us today. And if you said this is a personification, you would be correct. The comparison is the sun actually smiling. How does the sun smile on us? It gives us warmth, it makes us feel good, it gives us vitamin D. So that is the figurative smile that the sun gives us, is the things that it does for us and how it makes us feel. And our last one we have is, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Which type of figurative language do you think that one is? So if you said that is an adage, you would be absolutely correct. You can't have your cake and eat it too, meaning that you cannot have everything in this life. Sometimes you're going to have to choose, sometimes you're going to have to sacrifice, sometimes you're going to have to do without. But you can't have your cake and then eat it too. All right, guys, good job, good job, good job. All right, guys, you have been awesome as usual. Thank you very, very much for watching this video, and I truly hope you enjoyed it. And don't forget, Mama said knock you out.